Hello, and welcome. In this video, let us try to understand the differences between the concepts of procedure established by law and due process of law. First of all, let us delve into the concept of procedure established by law. Article 21 of the Indian Constitution states that no person shall be deprived of his life or personal liberty, except according to a procedure established by law. Now, let us look deep into the phrase, procedure established by law, mentioned in Article 21. When the judiciary applies the test of procedure established by law to test the constitutionality of a specific law, it checks whether the law has passed the following norms. Number 1. The law or an executive action which deprives a person of his liberty will be considered valid or constitutional if it has followed the right procedure. First of all, there should be a law in place which empowers the executive to deprive a person of his liberty. In the absence of any such law, the executive action lacks the legal backing, and thus it can be considered completely arbitrary. 2. The law thus enacted should have been enacted by a competent authority. That is, it should be enacted by the Parliament, which is the ultimate law-making organ of the government. 3. The procedure followed while enacting such a law should be fair and just. For example, consider a bill which is first introduced in the Lok Sabha. When the Lok Sabha passes that bill, it needs to be passed to the Rajya Sabha, and when Rajya Sabha also passes that bill, it needs to be passed to the President for his assent, and when the President gives his assent to the bill becomes an act. The same holds true for a bill which is first introduced in the Rajya Sabha. After getting passed by the first house, it should be passed to the second house, and if Lok Sabha also passes the bill, it should be passed to the President for his assent, and if the President gives his assent to the bill becomes an act. So, the laws which have been enacted by following the correct procedure is considered fair and just in its procedure.
Thus, the concept of procedure established by law is bothered only about the procedural aspects of a law. It does not consider the substantive aspects of that law. For example, consider a law enacted by the Parliament, which empowers the executive to deprive a person of his liberty. In this case, if that law has followed the right procedure during its enactment, then it can be considered a valid law under the concept of procedure established by law. In other words, only the technicalities of the enactment of a law is taken into consideration, and its moral side or substantive side, that is, whether depriving a person of his liberty is just, fair, or reasonable, is not taken into account. Now, let's delve into the concept of due process of law. Here, under the concept of due process of law, both the procedural as well as the substantive aspects are taken into consideration. That is, the law should be fair and just, not only in its procedure, but it should also be fair and just in its intention as well. Thus, unlike in the case of procedure established by law, the moral side, or fairness of the end result is also taken into account in due process of law. That is, both the procedural and the substantive aspects are taken into account under the concept of due process of law. Now, let's recall what we have learnt. When the judiciary applies the test of procedure established by law to ascertain the constitutionality of a particular law, or to ascertain the legality of an executive action, it looks into the following three things. That is, 1. The act of depriving a person of his liberty should be backed by an existing law. In the absence of such a law, the act of depriving a person of his life and liberty becomes arbitrary and unfair. 2. The law should be enacted by following the right procedure. 3. The law should be enacted by a competent authority. That is, the Parliament. Under the concept of due process of law, the law should fulfill the following objectives. 1. The law should be fair and just in its procedural aspects. 2. The law should be also fair and just in its intention or the end result. Thus, the procedure established by law deals with the procedural aspects alone, while the concept of due process of law deals with both procedural as well as substantive aspects. If you like my video, please do like my video and subscribe to my channel. Thank you.